right, guys, I think we will slowly start. Can you hear me without the microphone? Do you want the microphone? Yes. All right, we'll use the microphone then. And I think in about a minute, we will get started. So for those of you who are standing, if you want to grab a seat, feel yourself at home. If you want to keep standing, that's completely fine too. Do whatever you like. All right, I think we'll start. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to Sub0 Reset. My name is Indico Johansen, if you follow the course. And if you're interested in OpenGov, maybe you've heard of me, maybe you've recognized my voice. But if you didn't, that's completely okay, because today we're not here to talk about governance, but about the latest and greatest development in this ecosystem, Substrate and beyond. So, on the first day of this hacker stage, we will have a focus on education. We have Open Guild, who is going to talk on this very subject, and also Rogue, who is going to tell us about the latest and greatest development in the developer experience, something we are renowned for in this ecosystem. Then we will dive into some much more dev content, some serious dev content. We will have Beyond Frame, which I'm told is a little bit more on the technical side. It's the kind of stuff that you would see at the Polkadot Blockchain Academy. It's geared towards Frame developers who want to make Substrate runtimes without relying on Frame. We have Crust, a must for anyone, any developers, any builders who want a resilient storage solution. Then back to Frame system palettes, where Kian will be telling us about the latest tips and tricks on how to make Substrate runtimes. The bar camp will be a great opportunity for anyone interested in DevRel for Web3. We also have a great segue for newcomers in the ecosystem. If you're interested in learning how to make Substrate palettes, the self-sovereign identity module will be a great segue for you. And also you'll learn a little bit more about DIDs. And finally, we will have lightning demos. It's a fun and fast-paced session for anyone to ask any type of questions and also to see some of the latest projects in action. So without further ado, I introduce to you Mr. Peter White, who is the co-founder and developer at Rogue and Pop Network. Peter, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I want to start with this. How many of you here are familiar with this diagram? All right, all right, all right. So a lot of you are familiar with the diagram, but a lot of you are not, and that's okay, because this is the architecture of Polkadot, how it's commonly represented. But I actually want to talk about it in a different way, a simpler way, where we can look at Polkadot kind of like a digital world with infrastructure that powers a new type of internet. And it has a bunch of cities that are built on top of it, tapping into this infrastructure and building on top of this new internet. And this is a new internet that does some cool things, where it's based on verification, not based on trusting people. So what this means, if you are developers, is this means you get to build applications for your users where your users have complete control over their own data, their own digital identity. And there's no central authority that can control, adjust, or censor what your users do. But the question comes when you want to build a business that uses Polkadot, that is an application on this new type of internet. How do you do that? And how do you use the infrastructure that's provided to you? And this is the question that we are going to dive into today in this workshop. My name is Peter White. I'm a co-founder at Rogue. We are a team that has been in this ecosystem and are built up of developers. A lot of us are in this room here. If you want some pop rocks, we've got some pop rocks around. But we've done a lot of things. We've built blockchains, we've built smart contracts, applications, and a lot more. And our goal as a company is to make it easy and make it possible for you as developers to come in and actually build Web3 software easily. It's also our goal for this conference. We will be here offering workshops, offering support, and helping you be able to journey into Web3 if you want to. And if you're already here, that's okay. We can help you continue along that journey. But back to this. So, currently, there is no easy way for a business, for an application to come in and use the services and the infrastructure provided by Polkadot to build Web3 applications, to build a new application on a new type of internet. So what we need is we need a gateway that allows you as a developer to access this awesome, powerful infrastructure to build a better type of internet. An internet that is based on verification, not trust. Now, before jumping into what this gateway is, let's talk a little bit more about why can smart contracts, a Web3 program deployed on a blockchain, not use the building blocks that Polkadot provides? And then we'll talk about how we actually are building a gateway that allows you to use this infrastructure. And then Talk is Cheap, we'll actually demo something. We'll show you how this is becoming a possibility. So, I want to now start with this diagram. It's a diagram that doesn't exactly look like Polkadot, but maybe more like microservices. If you're familiar with microservices, it's just a Web 2 term where it's an encapsulated program, something that has its own storage, it has its own functionality. And we can look at Polkadot in a similar way, where it's an ecosystem full of these services. And then this piece, the gateway. This is what allows applications to compose a lot of these services into one full application. And with this, if we look at Polkadot through this lens, we would expect a few things. We would expect that you could execute things on a microservice. We would expect that you can get a result back into your program, whether it's an error or if it's a success. And then also, you should be able to query storage, query data from these services, right? And you should be able to get it back into your program. But currently, on Polkadot, for smart contracts, programs deployed on a blockchain, this is currently what's possible. You can, on a couple of parachains, execute something on one of these microservices. But when you want to get the result back, you can't do that. When you want to query data, you can't do that. So there's only one piece that smart contracts currently have that allows them to actually tap into this infrastructure of Polkadot. But we would expect all of these other things. And what this does is it hinders application development, because smart contracts are one of the easiest ways to build a program and deploy it. But if it can't use and compose the services of Polkadot, then it prevents this application development. And developers should also be able to focus on their use case. They shouldn't have to worry about this underlying infrastructure. And this is where POP comes in. POP is the platform that is built for developers, built by developers. We have tooling geared specifically to make it super simple to start your Web3 journey into Polkadot. We also have the building blocks that allows you to compose and build applications built around all of the services that Polkadot has to offer and its parachains, which is what we're focusing on today, this composability bit, where although we have lots of things that help developer experience, we have lots of things that offer building blocks to build your Web3 software, we want to focus on the bit that allows you to actually interact, use, and compose services across all of Polkadot. So here's this diagram, a little different way. Now we have POP Network in the mix. And POP Network is a parachain where smart contracts can be deployed. And through this gateway that we provide, you can use the services, the parachains that Polkadot has. You can execute things, and you can get a result that is sent back and automatically called into your smart contract. Similarly, you can query data from a parachain, and you can get the data, once again, automatically reported back to your smart contract. So, if we're to jump a little deeper, POP Network itself has its own mini microservices, if you will, where these are things, building blocks, that you can plug into your smart contract. The one we're focusing on is the messaging bit, the bit that allows you to interact with all of the parachains. Now, I'm going to go one layer deeper. Don't let this scare you, but it will be useful for the demo that we're going to do, which is actually the technology we're using. So, messaging, this is the core component that you as a smart contract developer get to interact with. But there's kind of two ways to look at it. You need to execute something across a parachain, and you want to query data. So to execute something, you use XCM, cross-chain messaging. And this allows you to execute and interact with different services, different parachains. And then when you want to query data, you use ISMP. Built by the awesome Polytope Labs team, it allows us to query data, and once again, in a verified way. There's no need to trust that the data is correct, because we can verify it is correct. So, we've talked about the architecture. We've talked about what we want to do. Can we actually do it? Are we actually building this? And the answer is yes. revive. So most of you probably don't know what this is, but also we're going to do this entire demo with Ink smart contracts on the latest and greatest of smart contracts on Polkadot, using the Polka VM and using the revive module. Now, for this example, it's not a super complicated example, but we're going to create a simple DAO, and a DAO where only holders of an NFT can register to this DAO. Say, for example, a sub0 ticket. Now, the issue is that this NFT is stored on Asset Hub, one of Polkadot's parachains. So we need to be able to query state from Asset Hub. Now, our DAO should be able to generically use all of Polkadot, right? It shouldn't be limited just to Pop Network. It should be able to use Asset Hub. It should be able to use Polkadot and what other parachains there are, maybe Crust, for example. Now, this is the first bit. If any of you have done workshops before and presented stuff, you know that things usually go wrong, so we just did a video. What we're going to start with is setting up a network. So we use the pop CLI. You call pop-up parachain. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to set up your local environment for you. It's going to set up Pop Network, and it's going to set up Asset Hub, and it's going to connect the two to be able to talk to each other. So there that goes. You don't just want to watch that load, so I'll just keep moving on. The next piece is, for our local environment, we have this NFT collection on Asset Hub. So we just need to create that. So it's just a simple thing. We're using the Polkadot.js Explorer, and we are calling NFTs to create a collection where Alice is the owner. And then that'll take a second to go through. All right, and then the next piece is we have to verify that somebody owns an NFT to be able to register to the DAO. So we're just going to give Alice an item ID 42, which is just an NFT that we can then use to verify that Alice has this NFT and can be registered. OK, that was the Asset Hub piece. Now let's set up the Pop Network piece. So we need to deploy our DAO contract. So we use the pop CLI, pop-up contract. It'll go ahead. It'll deploy it in just a second. There we go. And it's a deployed contract now on Pop Network that we can actually start using. And there's a bunch of events there showing that. But here's the fun stuff. That was just the setup. This is the fun stuff, where we have a smart contract on Pop Network, and we want to program and extend and use Asset Hub, okay? Because we're trying to query this NFT to verify registration. So we have to use the API, the Pop API. We go to the messaging. We use ISMP to query storage. That's all that's doing, is we're using ISMP to query storage from Asset Hub. And the next step that will happen is from Asset Hub, once we get the data, it'll go to the messages thing, and then it will automatically call back into the smart contract, allowing the smart contract to finalize the registration. Now, I realize this, for anyone that's not really in Web3, this doesn't seem that amazing. It's like, this is just what Web 2 is. You just call something, and you get a callback, and you do stuff with that data. But this hasn't been possible yet. And with this, we're actually going to show that it is. So let's go ahead and kind of walk through the steps of verifying NFT ownership. This is registering yourself to the DAO and verifying that you own an NFT across a different parachain. So first, we're doing pop call contract. You choose the contract address and then what thing you actually want to call. These are just some parameters to actually say, OK, what is the parachain state? And then we're calling that item ID 42. So we go ahead and execute that transaction. And this is going to request to Asset Hub now, hey, I want to see if Alice owns this NFT, if they can come into my DAO. Now, we're going to get this commitment. Now, don't let this scare you. This maybe seems complicated, but all this is doing is, from ISMP, you have to have a storage proof to verify the data. You can't just trust that it's right data. You have to verify it. So that's all that commitment is. And then we are going to, we see all these events here. It's like, OK, we submitted an ISMP request. And now we are going to actually relay this. Now, once again, don't let this scare you. This is just us proving that the data we are sending is correct. So that queries Asset Hub, sends it to Pop Network, and now the next step, now that we've sent this data to Pop Network and verified it, we now get all these awesome events, which aren't very pretty. But what these are saying is the contract was called automatically from a callback, and the user was actually registered into the contract after verifying an NFT on an entire different parachain. Now, this is also the same thing just to show, OK, if you don't have an NFT, it's going to fail. You're not going to get all the same events outputted. So I'm going to skip all of it because it's the same thing. you register, you provide an item ID that doesn't exist and is going to fail. If it wants to let me. There we go. So, I mean, really the main difference here is the smart contract didn't emit an event that says this was a success. OK, now the next piece. So we looked at the querying. We were able to query something from a different parachain. Now we want to execute things. We want to actually interact and use these parachains. So we're going to, once again, smart contract. It's going to go through the gateway, use the messaging API, and then send a cross-chain message over to Asset Hub. And we're just going to do something super simple. We're going to create an asset collection. It's a super simple thing that our DAO now manages some tokens on Asset Hub. And when we send this, it's like, hey, I want to create this asset on Asset Hub. I would expect that I would be able to, in my smart contract, confirm that this transaction on an entire different parachain was successful. And if it was successful, I can do things in my smart contract around that. So this is, we're going to actually create this asset. So first thing is we just need this encoded call data, which is basically just saying it's assets, we're creating it with ID 42, and it's just that data in hex format. So we're going to take that and actually pass it over to the DAO. Now the reason we did it in this way is because you can take this encoded call data from parachains, from Polkadot itself, and use that in your DAO. So your DAO can now dynamically call basically any of Polkadot. So we're going to call pop call contract. We're going to use that same contract. There it goes. And then we're going to call this transact message here that allows us to actually send this XCM message, send a cross-chain message to interact with Asset Hub. So that was just that same data. That's just like, this is assets. We're going to create one with ID 42. And then this is some things. And OK, now it's actually submitting. And this is all using Ink smart contracts as well. It's a Rust-based language that makes this really, really easy to do. So there we go. We have an XCM message that was sent from our smart contract and Pop Network now to Asset Hub. So if we go to the Asset Hub side, we will actually see, there it is, assets created. So the smart contract now has queried something from Asset Hub and is now interacting with Asset Hub. Smart contract, not a parachain. You do not have to build an entire parachain to do this. You can build a smart contract on Pop. Oh, all right. So we've shown that it is, with Pop, it will be easy, and it is possible to compose Polkadot. This is the vision of Polkadot. Having a lot of parachains, a lot of services that power a new type of internet. Now, as people that are developers that want to build businesses around this, you should be able to use all of this infrastructure in your businesses without having to create an entire city. You just want to create a business that lives within it. And this was not possible before. But with Pop, we allow you to go rogue with us, push the boundaries, and create unstoppable applications. So, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and open up to questions. First thing, though, we are here. We're doing a bunch of workshops for Ink smart contracts. So if you want to start learning how to actually build stuff, and you want to leave this conference ready to actually build on Polkadot, build applications, come to the workshops. We've got one. Bruno's going to be hosting one right after this. And there's free Pop Rocks, more candy. But yeah, any questions?
Yeah, so great product actually. But my question was more around ISMP.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about this protocol, but how is the which is the level of trust, or what is actually answering the chain, the other chain, so that you can verify? Actually, what do you need? Do you need to be on the same consensus, or what do you exactly need? So that what does the chain need to verify the data that comes?
Yeah, it's a great question. So ISMP is built by the team behind Hyperbridge, and we actually use so Polkadot as a relay chain stores all of the security for all of the chains. It has proofs. Basically, this is the current state of Pop Network. So we can use that fact, and this is how ISMP does it, to then take that storage proof and submit the data to then prove that the data that is stored, that we're pulling from Asset Hub, is confirmed in the Polkadot relay chain. So then we send that proof over, and it verifies it against the relay chain. So for us, it does have to be in the same consensus system. If you want to go further, Hyperbridge is a really good team to look at, though. Any other questions? awesome. Well, it was great talking to you all. And like I said, we are here to help you build, help develop things. We have lots of workshops that we're going to be doing over the course of the next 3 days. So it's going to be super busy, but we're super excited. And feel free to stop by. We'll have little pop stickers on us and just ask us any questions you want. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, Peter. The next speaker is due at 12, so we actually have about 22-minute break. I forgot to mention, but as Peter said, we have a lot of workshops going on. If you want some hands-on experience, do stop by the workshop. Our first one, we have 3 today, and the first one starts at 11:40. It's going to be one floor up. There's also a bunch of challenges to complete, and if you do complete them all successfully, you are in for some prizes. There are some Flipper Zero to win, and the grand prize is a vintage. What is it? A vintage Game Boy Color as well as a cash prize. So if you want to have some hands-on experience, stop by the workshops, have some fun, and then come back later for some additional talks. But for now, 20-minute break. See you again at 12.